envoys sent east by the Göktürk Khagan. No one remembers my name today. It was never carved into the Orkhon stones, nor sung in the epics of the bards, but I was there. On the day an empire was brought to its knees, that day was not merely the victory of a single battle. It was the day an empire, convinced it ruled the world, was crushed beneath the weight of its own arrogance, and I witnessed it with my own eyes. We were the children of the steppe. We were born on horseback. We lived on horseback. And if fate demanded it, we died on horseback. The sky was our roof. The wind was our messenger. Iron was our bread. And the wolf was our spirit. The Chinese called us barbarians because they believed safety existed behind towering walls. We believed our homeland stretched as far as the horizon itself. They claimed the land. We claimed the sky. And every inch of steppe beneath it. Our Khagan often said, if a Turk kneels, he does not lower only himself, he forces the entire steppe to bow. That is why surrender was never taught to us. Even when retreat was necessary, we were taught to preserve our honor. And when the time came, to die for freedom rather than live without it, that was the belief that kept us standing. In those days, there was only one power in the north that robbed China of its sleep. The Göktürk Khaganate, a realm forged from iron upon the endless steppe. Its horsemen moved as swiftly as the wind. Its blacksmiths forged weapons feared across the world. The word of the Khagan could travel thousands of kilometers, reaching every campfire across the steppe. We were not merely a tribe. We were the unyielding face of freedom, and China knew it. More and more messengers arrived at the royal court. Every one of them carried the same news. China was not stopping. Each day, new soldiers reached the frontier. Each day, new supply depots were built. Each day, new bridges stretched across the rivers. The Sui emperor was not preparing for a war. He was preparing to crush an entire nation. He was so certain of victory that he believed the name Goguryeo would survive only in forgotten chronicles. One evening while I stood watch upon the fortress walls, Eulji Mundeok approached me. His eyes were fixed on the northern horizon. For a long while, he said nothing. Then, without taking his eyes off the distance, he asked quietly, "Is the steppe truly that vast?" I smiled. "Ride your horse until it can go no farther. Then ride for another day. And another. Only then will you realize you have barely reached the beginning of the steppe." He nodded. A faint smile crossed his face. Then he spoke words I have never forgotten. The Chinese take pride in the size of their empire. We take pride in the strength of free men. At that moment, I understood. We spoke different languages. We wore different armor. We prayed beneath different skies. Yet we shared one unbreakable truth. Neither of our peoples had any intention of kneeling. The next morning, the palace courtyard burst into activity. Generals gathered around maps. Messengers rushed in, breathless. At last, the news everyone had been waiting for arrived. The Sui army had crossed the border. The horizon shimmered with endless ranks of iron armor. It was said that weeks after the vanguard had begun its march, the rear of the army had still not left its homeland. Rivers filled with soldiers. Roads disappeared beneath clouds of dust. China was coming with all its might. And I knew I was about to witness one of the greatest confrontations in history. Within days, the impossible became reality. The earth itself began to tremble, not from thunder, but from hundreds of thousands of marching feet. The Sui Empire had unleashed one of the largest armies the world had ever seen. Every hilltop was covered with banners. Every river carried ships loaded with grain and weapons. Every road disappeared beneath endless columns of soldiers. Many believed no kingdom on earth could withstand such power. Perhaps, if they had been facing an ordinary kingdom, they would have been right. But Goguryeo was no ordinary kingdom, and the Göktürks were no ordinary people. Far beyond the northern frontier, our horsemen never allowed the Chinese to breathe in peace. Border outposts vanished overnight. Supply caravans were forced to travel. under heavy guard. Thousands of soldiers who should have marched toward Goguryeo remained tied to the northern frontier. We did not need to fight the Emperor's main army. Sometimes the greatest victory is forcing your enemy to fear the battle that never comes. The Khagan understood this better than anyone. Every warrior the Emperor left behind to watch the steppe was one less warrior marching toward Goguryeo. China believed it was advancing against one enemy. In truth, it had already become trapped between two worlds, the endless steppe behind it and the unbreakable mountains before it. I expected the gates to open. I expected drums of war. I expected tens of thousands of Goguryeo warriors charging into battle. Instead, Eulji Mundeok gave an order that stunned everyone. Retreat, no cheers, no glorious charge, only silence. Village after village was abandoned. Fortresses emptied before the enemy arrived. Bridges were burned. Granaries were left empty. The Chinese marched forward and believed they were winning. Many of our own men questioned the decision. Some whispered that fear had found its way into the hearts of the generals. I watched Eulji Mundeok carefully. His face never changed. He was not running from the enemy. He was leading the enemy exactly where he wanted them to go. Every extra mile weakened the Sui army. Every empty village stole another day's worth of food. Every burned bridge stretched their supply lines farther and farther behind them. The Emperor believed he was conquering a kingdom. In reality, he was marching deeper into a trap that had already been prepared. That day, I realized something. The greatest generals are not those who win battles with their swords. They are those who make their enemies lose before the battle even begins. The days turned into weeks, yet the Sui army continued its march. The deeper they advanced into Goguryeo, the stranger the war became. No great battles, no glorious victories, only abandoned villages, burned bridges, empty granaries, and roads that seemed to stretch forever. At first, the Emperor believed this was proof of his overwhelming power. The enemy is running. That was the message carried through his camp. But victories won without battle come at a cost. The supply lines grew longer every single day. Food became harder to deliver. Horses collapsed from exhaustion. Armor became heavier with every mile. Even the most disciplined soldiers began to wonder how much farther they would have to march. Yet every morning, the order was always the same. Advancing. I watched Eulji Mundeok carefully. He never celebrated. He never rushed. He was allowing the enemy to exhaust itself. He knew that hunger could defeat an army faster than arrows, that doubt could shatter discipline more easily than swords. Then, one evening, something happened that I never expected. Instead of sending more warriors, Eulji Mundeok sent a poem to the commanders of the greatest army in Asia. Many of us looked at one another in disbelief. How could a few lines of poetry matter, while hundreds of thousands of soldiers stood ready for war? But Eulji Mundeok understood something few commanders ever learn. Sometimes words can cut deeper than steel. The message praised the enemy's courage, acknowledged their strength, then quietly reminded them of a simple truth. You have marched farther than any army should. Your men are exhausted. Turn back while you still can. It was not an insult. It was something far more dangerous. It planted doubt. For the first time since crossing the border, the Chinese commanders hesitated. Questions spread through the camp. Were they truly winning? Or were they walking exactly where their enemy wanted them to go? I could almost feel it. The confidence that had carried the Sui army across mountains and rivers was beginning to crack, and once doubt enters the heart of an army, defeat is never far behind. The retreat had begun. The Sui commanders believed the campaign was over. They had failed to destroy Goguryeo, but they still believed they could return home with honor. They were wrong. Eulji Mundeok had been waiting for this moment from the very beginning. For weeks, hidden workers and soldiers had quietly altered the banks of the Salsu river. A temporary dam had been prepared. The river looked shallow, calm, almost harmless. As the exhausted Chinese army reached its banks, thousands of soldiers stepped into the water without hesitation. The first ranks crossed easily. Then came the cavalry, then the supply wagons. Soon the river was packed with men, horses, and carts. That was the moment. A horn echoed across the valley. The signal had been given. Within moments, the dam was broken. At first, the soldiers heard only a distant roar. Some turned toward the mountains. Others froze in confusion. Then they saw it. An enormous wall of water racing toward them. Panic spread faster than the flood itself. Men screamed, horses broke their reins. Supply wagons overturned. Heavy armor dragged thousands beneath the current. Before anyone could regroup, the warriors of Goguryeo charged from the surrounding hills. Arrows darkened the sky. Spears struck from every direction. The exhausted Sui soldiers had nowhere to run. Behind them, the raging river. Before them, the army they had spent weeks chasing. It was no longer a battle. It was a catastrophe. When the sun finally set over the Salsu River, the greatest army in Asia had ceased to exist. Only a handful would ever see their homeland again. And as I stood up on the hill beside Eulji Mundeok, watching the river carry away the banners of an empire, I finally understood. Empires are not destroyed only by strength. Sometimes they are destroyed by patience. That day, the Salsu River carried more than just water. It also dragged along the pride of an empire. By evening, the screams had fallen silent. The neighing of horses had given way to the silence of death. Broken spears lay along the river, overturned chariots, and banners that would never again await their owners. Records of the time tell that, out of the Sui army of approximately 305,000 men, only about 2,700 soldiers managed to return home. Whatever the number, the truth did not change. One of the greatest armies the world had ever seen had been destroyed in the waters of Salsu. Goguryeo did not win this victory without cost. Many warriors gave their lives defending their homeland. Many families waited for sons who would never return home, but they had accepted the price of their freedom. I, as a Göktürk envoy, witnessed to all of this. When I returned to the Khagan, I said only one sentence: China can be defeated, as we had done many times. And indeed, it was so. After the defeat at Salsu, the foundations of the Sui Dynasty were shaken. Rebellions grew. The people could no longer bear the burden of endless wars. Before long, that great empire, which once seemed invincible, faded into history. That day, I understood that what destroys a state is not only the sword, arrogance, greed, and an underestimated enemy. 1400 years have passed. Empires have changed. Flags have changed. Weapons have changed. But have people changed? Who knows? Have the descendants of Goguryeo and the Göktürks truly changed as well? Will Koreans and Turks meet again?